So, like everybody here, I've got a very strong passion for fishing, and we all care deeply about this fish. It's part of our coastal identity, our communities, and our way of life. The latest science presents challenges, absolutely, but it also presents us with some opportunities. If we choose to, we can take this moment to reshape some of our fisheries management system, not just to make it sustainable, but strategically complete, grounded in purpose and focused on creating value for all West Australians. Our vision is pretty clear. It's about one that's deeply grounded in what West Australians value very much. We want a future where fishing continues to bring people together, families, friends and visitors, to share experiences, stories and a good feed of local fish. A future where fishers are not only just participants, but proud stewards of our fisheries, respecting the fish, supporting the rules, contributing to the data that supports our science and management. We want a future where coastal communities thrive with strong clubs, passionate volunteers, charter operators offering world-class fishing experiences along our unique West Australian coastline. Underpinning that are things that make it possible, such as management that protects sustainability while enhancing fishing experiences, strategic alignment of investment in things like habitat protection, restoration, infrastructure, community programs, and a management framework that recognises the social and economic benefits alongside the environmental outcomes. That's the future that we want as Recfishwest for Western Australians from this demersal resource. The public owns the fish. The government's role is to ensure that sustainable use translates to tangible public benefit. Food, lifestyle, well-being, connection to our ocean. But that only happens when there's a clarity of purpose. So Nathan spoke a lot about the how. What we need to also agree on is the why, and that's what connects people together. Our system cannot deliver accountability or measured public benefit unless the government of the day articulates clearly what it wants from our fisheries. Without that direction, the department is left to interpret policy on its own, and management becomes an administrative exercise rather than a strategic one. Once that purpose is defined, management can become accountable, not just from ecological sustainability perspective, but for the value that it creates for the West Australian public. That's the leadership role of government. Set the direction, define optimal use, we've heard that term a bit today and you'll hear it more, and hold the system accountable for delivering it. We must remain open to improving the evidence base, including through fisher participation and observations. The sustainability is the foundation, it's not the finish line. The question here is not whether or not we are sustainable, but rather sustainability for what purpose. A couple of lessons from the past. So we recently had two different sides to a story. On the West Coast, Nathan made mention, the harvest strategy, 50% reduction, there was urgency, and the decision was reaction dominated. The harvest strategy was applied with rigidity and the system overreacted to the science. It led to a large amount of unnecessary social and economic harm. It included the loss of charter operators along our West Coast that didn't have the opportunity to even demonstrate any of the value that they provided. They were never given the chance to have a conversation about where that value was. So the lesson here is that we've got science in front of us today, and it is concerning, but it should inform our judgment. It shouldn't dictate it or replace it. The management must reflect the biology, but it also must be considerate of the flow of benefits. I think that's really important. And we need to consider whether or not we need to think about 2 to 3 year adjustment windows within harvest strategies. The West Coast harvest strategy was quite new. It wasn't pressure tested when we went through this back in 2023. And the sustainability concerns intersected and impacted quite considerably on the business continuity of the charter sector, tackle shops and a lot of regional wellbeing. Here's one that works a bit better. We have a pretty good model, the Western rock lobster fishery and its harvest strategy. It does contain some very explicit and measurable economic and social objectives for both sectors. And I'll read the commercial one out. It's to optimise the economic performance of the commercial sector through consideration of annual market variability to determine TACC and provide high economic returns to the community and greater amenity. The recreational sector one is to manage and improve the unique experience and culture of recreational fishing with a focus on high value experience during the annual migration of lobster in the lead up to Christmas. maintain accessibility and reliability of local supply of rock lobsters to the West Australian community. So there we have a really good example in the harvest strategy for Western rock lobster that actually has the word Christmas in it, so it represents that White's Run. It's very clear for managers to go forward and actually deliver benefits, make sure that they're focused on sustainability but are aware of the benefits. So each of these objectives in the rock lobster harvest strategy is linked to measurable performance criteria. So it's export market value, the number of local back of the boat sales, and the number of recreational licences in terms of participation, and therefore the performance measures of the fishery. This is a transparent process. It helps build trust and accountability. And with that, public confidence grows when the decisions are guided by those clearly stated measurable objectives. If we applied the same logic to the demersal suite, we'd have a much stronger management guided by clearer outcomes and not just by the biomass targets, and that's something we really need to talk about today. So Recfishwest and in partnership with DPIRT are already showing how innovation and diversification can support sustainability and create some value. We have some FAD programs, we're working on artificial reefs and other alternative fishing opportunities, and we're giving fishers new experience while taking a bit of pressure off the demersal stocks. This is values-driven management in action. It's protecting sustainability while also improving and expanding the opportunity. We know we don't manage fish, we manage people, and when fishers are engaged and respected, they actually become stewards. Their behaviour, their data, their observations contribute directly to sustainable outcomes. So for 2 decades we've been talking about ecological sustainable development, and we haven't quite reached its potential. I think it's really time to start talking about more of a whole of oceans approach to the way that we integrate our fisheries management in science. We've got marine parks, we've got offshore wind energy, we've got ports, we've got petroleum and resource activities. And it's time that these types of things get factored into our whole of management approach. We need to recognise the cumulative impacts and the shared spatial use that our fisheries operate in. And we need to manage the marine estate as one connected system that sustains the ecological, the social and the economic values together. This aligns to some of the broader objectives of state government around regional prosperity, climate resilience, tourism and community wellbeing. And fisheries has really got to start to work outside its silo of operation that it's currently under. I think we need to move from fisheries management to broader fisheries governance and connect the science, the stewardship and make it clearly connected under a very clear government direction around value. This should be guided by shared objectives beyond simply sustainability, and I know that's obviously the primary objective, but we must think about those other objectives: resilience, participation, seafood supply, community wellbeing. Every fish that we take out of the water should create the most value possible, and that's even more important now when there's fewer fish to go around. I think this forum does give us the chance to embed the why into our management system, because without it we're going to be managing in the dark, and it's a very confusing space. So that why is very important, and I think from a collaborative perspective we can align around what we're trying to achieve here from a shared vision perspective. And so let's not just focus on simply the stock, but also that purpose as we go forward today. And I think that's how we truly build a sustainable and resilient valued fishery for West Australian public who are out there, and they get maximum benefit from it. And I just encourage everybody later today, there's a lot of science, there's a lot of management, but the why is very important. What is the value that we're working to create here for West Australians, and how do we make sure that when we're making decisions that we're accountable to that agreed value? Once again, it is for the government of the day to step forward and actually help set that direction that guides our fisheries management around purpose and creating value and flow of benefits that maximises those flow of benefits and the social and economic benefits for the West Australian community.